This is the video for Wednesday, April 17th. Today we will be working on more EOC review. Remember, tomorrow you will have a test. I will not be here when you are finished with your test tomorrow. It needs to be stapled and turned into the box. The assignment that we will complete today needs to be turned in tomorrow into box 1 when you arrive to class. So turn in to box 1 tomorrow. If you need me, I will be available by Schoology. You can send me a Schoology message, and I will be here before school tomorrow. So if you have questions before your test tomorrow, or if you need to retest your last test, come see me before school on Thursday. I will be in my room. Okay, I can't quite remember where we left off yesterday as far as checking our answers went. I think we got to at least number 17. So take out your homework from yesterday. Let's quickly check. Number 17, you should have gotten F. Number 18, you should have gotten 4. On number 19, the correct answer was H. The car loses less value between years 9 and 10 than it does between years 1 and 2. Number 20, you could have graphed these in your calculator. The correct answer was B. 21, I would have extended this parabola, and you could see that this hits somewhere around 9. The correct answer was B. On number 22, the y-intercept is 5.5. You could have used stat edit to get an exact number, or you could have looked at this and said it's right in between 5 and 6 for the y-intercept. Number 23, what is a solution? What is an x-intercept? The correct answer was C, 14. And number 24, the x-intercept represents the number of hours the truck was driven before running out of fuel. Okay, make sure at this time that you picked up the paper you needed when you came into class today and that you have a calculator out on your desk. We are going to review linear inequalities and quadratic transformations. Linear inequalities, remember, we graph just like graphing lines. We need them to be in y equals mx plus b. And then we need to decide if we have a dashed line or a solid line and which direction we shade. On number 1, I'm going to start by solving for y. First, I need to subtract 10x on both sides. This leaves me with positive 2y is less than or equal to negative 16 and negative 10x are not like terms, so negative 10 minus 16, negative 10x. Then we need to divide everything by positive 2. This gives us y is less than or equal to negative 10 divided by 2 is negative 5x. Negative 16 divided by 2 is negative 8. So our y-intercept is negative 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And our slope is negative 5, so down 5 over 1. We don't really have room for that, so I'm going to do it backwards. Up 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 over 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 over 1. Our inequality symbol is less than or greater than, less than or equal to. So since it is or equal to, this is a solid line. So just a normal line through those points. And since it is less than, we are going to shade down. So I'm going to put my pencil on any point on the line and go down, and that is the direction that we shade on that side of the line. Remember, another way that you can decide which way to shade is you can plug in the point 0, 0 and see if you get a true or false statement. On number 2, again we need to solve for y, so that this says y equals mx plus b. We are going to start by dividing by -3. Y, okay, we divided by negative, so remember that means we flip that inequality symbol, is less than. -1 divided by -3 turns into positive 1/3 x. -6 divided by -3 is positive 2. So our y-intercept is positive 2, and a slope of 1 over 3. So up 1 over 1, 2, 3. Up 1, 1, 2, 3. Go both directions till you are all the way across your graph. Our symbol is less than, no or equal to, so this will be a dotted line. So it looks like a cut here line. And since it is less than, we will shade down. So I'm putting my pencil on my line, dragging it downward, and I shade everything on that side of my green line. Remember that our solution is in the shaded area or on a solid line. So right now, since we have a system, we have more than one, our solution is in the area where that shading overlaps and on the solid purple line. Okay, last one, y is less than -8. This equation is already solved for y, so I've got to remember, what kind of line is this? Vux hoi. Since it only has a y, this is a horizontal line with a slope of 0. So horizontal line, I start at where y is -8. Less than, so this is a dotted line. Horizontal line, so I go straight through. And since it is less than, we shade down. Everything underneath that pink line. For a system, our solution is where our shading overlaps. So our solution would be in this area here, where the shading from all 3 lines overlaps, and then on that solid purple line. Okay, let's talk quickly about quadratic transformations. This should be a little fresher on your mind because it hasn't been as long since we've done this. Transformation form for a quadratic equation or quadratic function can be expressed like this. F of x or y is equal to a times bx minus h squared plus k. Remember, this squared is what makes it a parabola, makes it a quadratic function. Everything inside the parentheses is horizontal. Anything outside of the parentheses is a vertical change. Let's start by looking at vertical translation, so moving up and down. We are going to start by looking at k. When k is greater than 0, or in other words, when you have a positive number or plus some number on the end, then the graph shifts up k units. So if it's +4, then your graph goes up 4 spaces. If k is less than 0, or in other words, if k is negative, something like minus a number, the graph shifts down k units. So if we had -2, our graph would go down 2 spaces. If we are inside of the parentheses, h, remember everything inside the parentheses is opposite. If we have x minus h, so x minus a number inside the parentheses, then our graph actually goes to the right h units. So if it's x minus 4 inside the parentheses, then our graph goes to the right 4 spaces. If we have x plus h, then our graph actually moves to the left. So if we have x plus 1 inside parentheses, our graph goes to the left 1 unit. Okay, now we are looking at vertical stretches and compressions. This is the number that is in the very front of the equation. If that number a is greater than 1, then our graph stretches vertically. So this means if we have a parabola and we take it and we stretch it out vertically, so we stretch it, then this graph gets more narrow. It gets thinner. If that a value is between 0 and 1, so something like 0.5, 2/3, then the graph compresses vertically. So this is like if we take our parabola and we squish it from the top and squish it from the bottom, it gets really wide. So a vertical compression causes the graph to get wide. This is the only time I'm going to ask you to look at the negative separately from the number. So if that number that is in the very front is also negative, then this is when the graph reflects across the x-axis, or in other words, our parabola opens down. For horizontal stretches and compressions, this is the number inside the parentheses. Remember, anything inside the parentheses is opposite. So for horizontal, if that number b is greater than 1, then our graph compresses horizontally. So if I take my parabola and I squish it, I compress it from both sides, this would cause this parabola to get much more narrow. It would cause it to get thin. So a horizontal compression makes our graph narrow. When that number b is between 0 and 1, so something like 0.7, 1/4, then the graph stretches horizontally. So if I take my parabola and I stretch it out from side to side, this is going to cause my graph to get really wide. Okay, very last thing about transformations. If we are given a quadratic equation, so it has the squared, in vertex form, then our vertex is the number h and k. It's an ordered pair. So h is the x value. Remember, it's opposite. So here if we had -2 and +4, then our vertex would be +2, 4. Okay, inside parentheses is opposite. Okay, I want you to pause the video now and take 5 minutes to finish questions 1 through 5. So you need to be working, and then in 5 minutes we will check those answers. At this point you should have had 5 minutes to answer questions 1 through 5. So let's check our answers. On number 1, it said that the vertex of graph Q is 18 units below. Which pair could have been used to create these graphs? So if graph Q is 18 units below, this means we needed -18. The correct answer was D. Number 2, which statement about the relationship between graph of f, the parent function, x squared, and the graph of 7x squared is true? This 7 is a vertical stretch. So a vertical stretch means that our graph gets narrower if we take this graph and we stretch it out. You could have graphed these both in your calculator. You should have gotten the correct answer is F. Take a look at number 3. It says the function p is in the form y equals ax squared plus c if the values of a and c are both less than 0, or they are both negative, which could be p. Okay, if a is negative, that means our graph has to open down. Automatically, you should have crossed off G. If c is negative, that means that our graph shifted down. The correct answer was H. Moving on to number 4. The graph of f of x squared was transformed to create the graph of g of x is x minus 7.5 squared, which describes this transformation. Everything inside the parentheses is opposite, so this moves to the right 7.5 units. The correct answer was F. Okay, I'm out of time on this video. The correct answer to number 5 should have been J. Work on number 6 through 10 in 5 minutes. Start the next video and we will check our answers.